Hi, and welcome to a video with me, Andrea, and Everest will most likely be making an appearance. So the topic of today's video is basically like the parts of pregnancy and birth and postpartum and parenting that no one really talks about, but are pretty common experiences or common enough. Um, and I just wanted to touch on some of them and bring some more authenticity to this process. So I've got a list of a bunch of stuff, and I'm just going to go through it, and I'm just going to hit it off. The first one is pica. Pica is this random thing that happens to a lot of pregnant people where they suddenly have cravings to eat or smell things that they otherwise wouldn't have. I had pica during my pregnancy. I had these cravings where I just wanted to smell and drink gasoline. In my third trimester is when it started. I had a friend who had pica for baby poo. She didn't have a baby. She wasn't around baby poo, but her brain just kept telling her that she wanted to smell baby poo, that she wanted to eat baby poo. And like, it sounds kind of funny, but it actually really sucks. And it makes you feel like you're losing your mind. Like, it's not normal to want to smell or eat baby poo. So, or gasoline, or Lysol, or soaps and detergents is a very common one too. Um, so, pica. The next one is called DMER or DMER. And it's basically this condition where when a woman is nursing, specifically when her milk lets down, which is something I'm going to talk more about in this video, when her milk she has her let down, she experiences they experience deep suicidal thoughts. So all of a sudden you're nursing your child and you want to die. Every bit of you wants to die. Sometimes they have violent thoughts about hurting their child. Now, this is different from a nursing aversion. Nursing aversions aren't as severe as DMER, but a lot of people have this where they're literally nursing and all of a sudden they just want more than anything to die. And they don't know what's going on because no one really talks about it. So they're like, they just think that no one else experiences it, but they do. Nursing aversions are less severe, but they're awful. And I've had a nursing aversion, and it's basically just like you just get so angry and like you have this physical response to nursing, and it's rough. And a lot of women experience them when they're pregnant, but they can happen at any time. Then a lot of people don't know that often babies are born with swollen chests or swollen genitals and genitalia, and newborn babies can lactate and menstruate or like vaginally bleed because they are filled with so much hormones from being in utero. So I have friends whose newborn babies were lactating, like had milk coming out of their breasts and had very swollen breasts. So then a lot of people said I should bring up the first poo, and I automatically thought that they meant the meconium, which is the first poo the baby has, which is like black and sticky as tar. It is just the weirdest thing. But then another person said that I should bring up just the first poo you do after birth, which is terrifying. Like postpartum, like the day after you give birth, your privates are throbbing. And if you have a tear or any stitches, the pain is absolutely unimaginable. Take the meds that they give you. Take the meds, because if you are even an hour late, it just feel the most intense pain you can imagine. And then what a lot of people don't realize is after you give birth, you can bleed daily for like weeks. Some women stop bleeding after a few days. Some women bleed for a month straight. And then after you stop bleeding, you might then have another bleed happen about 5 to 6 weeks later. But that's not your period. That's just a little extra blood coming. But then you might not get your period for months, like depending on how long you nurse. Nursing generally keeps your period away. Just so you know, just because you're not getting your period, my love, I'll be right with you. Just because you're not getting your period doesn't mean you can't get pregnant. You're still capable of getting pregnant. So even though you don't have your period, use birth control, because I have a lot of friends who have second kids who were not planned because they didn't have their period, they thought they were fine, and then they got pregnant anyway. But yeah, you could have postpartum bleeding for 4 weeks straight, and huge scars, and then with your boobs, like, and your milk coming in, the engorgement can be extremely painful. Your boobs are like rock hard. And then a lot of women can feel the milk coming down. It's called a letdown. And one of my friends, when she feels it, she says it feels like ants crawling down her breast. And it like literally is not a fun feeling. I didn't feel my letdown at all, but I had oversupply. And so I was always leaking, so much so that like my breast milk would shoot through my bra, through my shirt, like out, all of that fabric. Like it was like a lot of breast milk. I ended up donating a ton of breast milk to a little boy nearby named Everett. Everest and Everett, who knows? Night sweats. A lot of women or people after they have a baby, they experience tons of night sweats, and I had that. Like I'd wake up drenched. I thought I'd peed myself most of the time, but it was really just sweat, and you just sweat so much. And then about 4 months postpartum, you start losing a lot of your hair. It starts falling out, and then it grows back, and you have these little like half hairs all around the crown of your head. And so when you put your hair up, you have all these things sticking up. That's annoying. And then there's the mucus plug. A lot of people talk about your water breaking, but they don't talk about you losing your mucus plug. So when you get pregnant, your body creates this little plug to plug up your cervix. And before you go into labor, but sometimes like a significant chunk of time before you go into labor, so sometimes it's like 2 weeks before you go into labor, sometimes it's 24 hours before you go into labor, on Mummy, but not her computer, okay? On Mummy, on her legs. And it can come out slowly in little chunks, or it can come out in one big thing, and it's just this mucusy, bloody thing. Yeah. Okay. That comes out of your vulva or your vagina. And then there's Diastasis Recti and prolapse. So, like, having all of this, like, extra mass in your stomach pushes all of your muscles apart. And a lot of women, after they give birth, it is the weirdest feeling after you give birth. I didn't even want to touch my stomach because it just was like weird. Like it just feels like this empty, like sack of organs, and they aren't in the right place, and you feel weird. Like you feel like if you like go like this, you're gonna like push your like intestines like into the wrong place. Like I just didn't, like, it was such a weird feeling. But then the muscles of my abdomen didn't really come back together, and I could like basically stick my fingers into through the muscles because they had separated. So I needed to go to a pelvic floor specialist. And I really think everyone should go to a pelvic floor specialist. And I learned all these different exercises because just exercising alone won't necessarily bring them back together. You might tone them completely apart. You need to bring them back in and like reconnect them. It's very bizarre. And it's not pleasant. And then there's prolapse, which basically just means like that, like everything doesn't really go back well. And you have lots of bladder pains and issues, and like incontinence is talked about, and everyone's like, do your Kegels, but like after you have a baby, you're just gonna pee yourself. So yay. Painful engorgement. So, and then like a lot of the ones that people brought up were, emotional. And like that's something that I could do 3 videos on and never fully explain. Like your brain changes, the way you think changes, the way you look at the world changes. It just is the most bizarre thing. And a lot of moms, a lot of my friends and I will talk about, intrusive thoughts that you experience or just the most bizarre emotions that make you feel so guilty because you're just like, that is not what I expected to feel. Like a lot of my friends had really hard time connecting with their newborn. And around, a day or 2 or a week after having them, they were thinking very strong thoughts of like, I've made a mistake. I do not like this. I do not love them. And I feel broken. I feel like something's wrong with me. And it's unbelievable how common that is. But we've really, created this taboo where you have to like always be positive and always be like, well, I love them though. And you do, but like that doesn't overshadow or like take away all the difficulties. And I could do a million videos about that part, but I just wanted to cover some of the physical ones, and I still haven't covered it all. There's so much more to be discussed, but I hope this was an informative video for you, or at least like made you feel less alone, or I don't know. Give it a thumbs up and have a great day.